Hello there.
Whatever you've got, I don't want it. Head to the church before you get me sick.
Oblivion's NPC dialogue is a bit of a paradox. On one hand, it's the gold standard for NPC interaction, bringing the world of Cyrodiil to life.
Norbert Lillis runs a fine store, but he's not the brightest fellow.
He's a nice fella, but he couldn't even get the sign for his store spelled right.
And on the other, memes show Oblivion's dialogue is best represented by people on the spectrum looking for love.
Nice to meet you, Alice.
You too.
Yeah. Well, Alice, do you want to go over to the park bench?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or the mentally unwell.
Yeah, babies don't usually eat candy, do they?
Babies? No idea what you're talking about.
I'm Lori Scott. Nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to
Have a
meet
good
you.
day, thank you.
Okay.
So, how are both of these opposing statements simultaneously true? Well, in today's video, I'll be breaking down 1. How does dialogue work in Oblivion, and what makes it stand out from other titles? 2. Why does the community make fun of the dialogue if it's so good?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And 3. What is the hidden reason people widely find Oblivion's NPCs so jarring?
I'm
do you
through
do?
talking to you.
And how it relates to our subconscious. To better understand Oblivion's NPCs, I have to first dispel a persistent myth about them. Despite appearances, they are never actually talking to each other. Moreover, they're talking to us, the player. Allow me to explain. Every single piece of dialogue and seemingly benign gossip is dedicated to world building.
Kvatch is finished. There's nothing left.
Don't forget, Cameron Usurper burned Kvatch too. Kvatch was rebuilt from ruins once before, and she'll do it again. How could the Nine let this happen? Are they angry with us?
I don't know. What could we have done to deserve this?
It's the smell, really. Smoke and fire and something worse. In the ruins. Gods. I don't even notice anymore. I guess you can get used to anything.
I've looked everywhere. Perhaps she's still in Kvatch in a basement hiding.
It's possible. Or maybe she got out and she's looking for you too.
In fact, to better understand what NPCs are saying and why, I'm going to lift the curtain to reveal the wizard's tricks, showcasing the inner workings directly of Oblivion's NPCs. And before you say anything, all NPCs do think before they speak.
Huh? Sorry, I ain't interested.
To take a look under the hood, Bethesda used a program called the Test Construction Set. Think of it as the brain of NPCs controlling everything from their attributes, schedules, and most importantly, in this case, what they can and can't say. This gives us, the player, the ability to learn directly from the source itself. For example, and expediency's sake, we can break down these dialogue trees into a few key branches and examples of topics, such as Info General will tell us about the world and current events in and around Cyrodiil and Tamriel as a whole.
Rumor has it the Nerevarine has left Morrowind on an expedition to Akavir and has not been heard from since.
It seems that these are turbulent times in the land of the Dunmer.
There are wilderness topics that give us clues as to how best deal with challenges outside the cities.
I've heard people saying they ran into goblins around here not long ago. I can't stand those things. Horrid beasts. I hate the things.
Speaking of cities, NPCs are generally assigned regions themselves, and you can learn more about the local goings-on each city from the citizens therein.
Lots of dogs in this town. Lots of sheep, too. Of course, I prefer the taste of sheep.
Also, NPCs having heard rumors themselves can be overheard or persuaded to share key information on quests.
I'm listening, please go ahead.
Any news?
Hi there.
They say that when you murder someone, the Dark Brotherhood comes to you in your sleep. It's how they recruit new members.
Is this true?
Without question.
Now, Skyrim, for whatever reason, decided at best to reduce a lot of these rumours from the chattering of most citizens, and instead relied on a handful of innkeepers who would dole out said information.
Have you seen that Shrine of Azura? They say the Dark Elves built it after they fled from Morrowind. Sight to see.
Why? Well, it's probably easier to track, though Todd Howard has infamously been quoted on why each game's successor seems to streamline features or scrap them entirely.
Like I was saying, we go at it each time with, let's not just look at the last one and say, what does it need? You know, I think most people, most fans will look at it and say, it's great, you should change the leveling, add spears, add crossbows, add this, and add some more races. And I usually approach it from, well, I want to know what skills are superfluous, that we should fold into something else to make the choice of what your character is more meaningful.
So, I can hear you say, Dash, why do players make fun of the dialogue if it's so bloody quotable? Well, the reasons are manifold. The first reason that comes to mind is the discrepancy of some voice lines delivered, such as the eye-opening decision to have beggars switch their dialect and inflection, as lambasted by PewDiePie himself.
I love this one because it really shows the different range the voice actors can do.
Of course, it's all just made up to give them an excuse to keep us down. Thank you, kind sir.
You give him a coin and...
Have you heard about that ghost of the old man that looks out into Nibbin Bay each night?
What the fuck happened?
They're calling him...
What the fuck happened after he gave him a coin? Did his balls drop as soon as he gets money?
Thank you, kind sir.
The second is that when speaking, NPCs will sometimes need to transition to the next topic. These transitions are dependent on disposition with each other, and Bethesda infamously added a good old snort and sniff mid-conversation to NPCs speaking to those they don't like.
Safe travels.
Take care.
The third reason, that is the most profound, brings us to the truth as to why these conversation breaks just seem to hit the ear wrong. And this comes from a man who absolutely froths Oblivion's dialogue. Something that is like a scratch that I could never itch was actually articulating why the dialogue doesn't quite sound right. And to briefly and hopefully concisely give this assertion context, remember when I mentioned the vagrants a minute ago? Players have pointed out the voice switching for years.
One more coin, and I can get a pair of shoes. If you're looking for a paint, check out the Stat Lilia stables. Blessings of Anu upon ye.
It seems to be some corner-cutting features were added. Why? Well, apparently it was because there were space issues on the disc, and a lot of content in Oblivion had to be scrapped. So you can see why Bethesda would want to save space, as there was already a supposed 60,000 voice lines shared between a total of 13 voice actors. This becomes much more apparent when you mix in another feature Oblivion calls Disposition. Each NPC has a hidden disposition rank for every other NPC and player they encounter. This score is based on a myriad of factors such as respective races, factions, etc. As you can see by a handful of race-specific greetings, not all of Cyrodiil's NPCs were meant to get along.
Speak, snowman, and stop wasting my time.
This score, as it turns out, can be manipulated by the player with the much maligned dialogue wheel. Now, in a few cases this works as intended and beautifully, such as when you join the Dark Brotherhood, members will relay tips on how to finish contracts.
Yes, brother? What can old Gogrun do for you?
If they like you, it'll sound like.
The manservant's name is Grom, you say? Sounds like a Nord. Probably a big one. If he catches you, get ready for a serious fight.
And if they despise you, their response sounds like.
What's the matter? You can't kill an old man? Want Gogron to hold your hand? You make me sick. Damn the tenants, I'll cleave you in two if you don't get out of my face.
But why don't all NPCs have these disposition-based responses? Well, there's a few reasons. If NPCs all truly hated each other and the player, they would never even converse, and we would miss out on huge swaths of information.
It's you. Hi. You're still speaking. Stop.
Pair this with the fact that if said NPCs had low disposition to the player, they would let them know this as they're programmed with spare voice lines for greetings and goodbye. But there's a problem. They can tell you they don't like you when you approach and when you leave, but they still have to give out information. So remember when we explored beggars' jumps between their generic begging voice and rumours? Well, imagine if the 13 voice actors had to do 62,000 voice lines in multiple ways to keep the disposition consistent with the player.
I've been looking for you.
I don't have time to talk.
I have things to do.
Hello.
And it quickly becomes apparent, no matter how good the dialogue, there is a glaring flaw in the system. As they actually break inscrutable rules we hold in real life that I'm willing to bet most people don't know about. And what do I mean by this bold assertion about conversations as a whole? Well, funnily enough, it was only after stumbling upon a video by What I've Learned, titled Status, How to Win Big by Being a Pathetic Loser, which of course appealed to me, did I realise the invisible ballet that was taking place in all human interactions that most people A, never notice, and B, although they innately know it's there once told, it's really hard to articulate to people who don't watch the video. So, without further ado, I'm going to take a chunk of this explanation from his video, as it so succinctly breaks down the breakdown in communication of Cyrodiil's citizens that is so damn jarring.
London 1963. This is Keith Johnstone. He was trying to teach improvisation at the Royal Court Theatre, but something wasn't working. Paraphrasing his book Impro, "My students couldn't produce natural conversations like those I overheard in the street. If casual interactions really were motiveless and operated by chance, why was it impossible to reproduce them at the studio?" Pondering this at the theatre one evening, he noticed the actors on stage seemed to have the strongest possible motives for everything they did. But this looked unnatural too, so Johnston decided to try asking the opposite. What were the weakest possible motives a person might have? The next day, he paired up his actors with an improvisation exercise. As you're acting, try to get your sense of status just above or below your partner's, but the gap should be minimal. The students seemed to know exactly what I meant. The scenes suddenly became authentic and marvelously observant. We saw that every inflection and movement implies a status, and that nothing is neutral due to chance or actually motiveless. It was hysterically funny, but also very alarming. All our secret maneuverings were exposed.
So I call it status, which means not your social status, but what you do to the other person. And by accident, I found that you could teach it to people, trying to be slightly higher or lower than the other person. Looks like human behavior. We're always secretly maneuvering. The voice in the head is all about other people's opinion of you and how can you get more credit for something? How can you make people like you? This ghastly voice that you think is you. But the obvious is very difficult to grasp.
Based on how our body chemistry has evolved, we can assume that noticing who around us is gaining or losing status has survival benefits, but more on this later. Generally, we're good at reading each other's status, and a lot of entertainment from comedy to sports works because subtle changes in status are very fun to watch. For example, a stand-up comedian usually lowers his or other's status to make a joke.
One time I threw a candy wrapper on the street. I didn't do it like, yeah. I did it because I was, like shaking. I wanted the candy.
With keeping this invisible dance of status in mind, you can see why our lizard brain uses it as a guidance system of how to conduct conversations above and beyond the normal fight or flight, and also why we hate when people are incongruent with their disposition towards us.
Don't
play games with me. Goodbye.
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 I'm through talking to you.
And finally, it makes all the memes make sense, as like Oblivion NPCs, who are fundamentally talking, surreptitiously relaying information to the player, some people are not innately programmed to be taking into account social cues and status themselves, hopefully now making the memes make sense. Now, obviously, the question then becomes, how do we deal with this in, say, The Elder Scrolls 6 if Bethesda was to implement the old dialogue system? And the truth is, unless there's some type of AI to bend NPCs to their disposition, there would need to be a phenomenal amount of voice lines recorded, which I believe is worthwhile. Games these days and their storage is out of control, but I 100% believe that dialogue in Oblivion is one of the greatest parts of the game, and it was sorely lacking in Skyrim. So having Bethesda go the extra mile for The Elder Scrolls 6, I think players would truly enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out. As well as consider becoming a channel member, as there are perks such as emojis and seeing videos early. As always, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, Traveller.